Creativity in the Age of COVID with Dr. Judi Bloom and Richard Skipper. It's the only program in which therapy and entertainment come together to show everyone not only how to cope in the age of COVID, but how to be creatively productive through it all. And now, Dr. Judi Bloom and Richard Skipper.
Hello, Dr. Bloom. How are you?
Good. I'm good, Richard. How are you today?
This has been the strangest day. It's like technology, strange things going on. Have you had an unusual day?
I've had, kind of one of those days, right? Where patients were canceling last minute and changing things around, and then somebody was desperate, and just kind of something in the air, right?
Well, we've got possibly two phenomenal guests on the show today. One is definitely in the wings, and we'll talk about him in just a moment. And our other guest, I'm not even going to mention her in case she doesn't make it here. But I just got off the phone with my tech guy, and he's going to get her hopefully on the air. And as soon as we see her in the wings, provided that he's able to get her there, we will bring her on. And as we always do, what are you celebrating? Because I'm all about celebrating. So what are you celebrating today?
What am I celebrating today? I'm celebrating the fact that I'm going to go get my booster shot this weekend.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Good. That's cause for celebration. Again, it's another step forward into life. Right.
And I am going to be doing something on Monday night that I have not done in almost 2 years. And I am actually going to be on stage again. I am going to be hosting a celebration of Tommy Tune. Tommy is actually a very dear friend of mine. Here we are dancing together. Look at this.
I love it.
So the fact that I am actually going to be in front of an audience again, all the protocols are in place. The entire audience, we're almost sold out. Everyone has to be vaxxed. The audience has to wear their mask. All the entertainers on stage have to be vaxxed. I feel very comfortable. I am so excited. I cannot wait to be there. So that I'm celebrating. So
I wish I could be there with you. I really do.
Well, I hope so. And maybe we'll have something that we'll be able to share, and maybe on the next show we'll be able to do that. And we're going towards Thanksgiving, so it's the time of gratitude and Thanksgiving, and this year I'm as you know, I've been on this diet plan, and as I'm going into the holiday season and looking at food differently and everything, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that this year as well.
Me too. And my kids are coming for Thanksgiving, and some friends are coming with their kids for Thanksgiving. So it'll be fun, and I'm going to cook up a storm.
Well,
healthy and not healthy stuff, both.
Well, I'm also very grateful that a dear friend of mine that I haven't seen him in ages, but I'm going to bring him right on. Craig Pomerantz is an incredible entertainer. He's not a performer, he's an entertainer. There's a distinction. My dear friend Carol Channing, may she rest in peace, always said that a seal is a performer. A seal is only interested in getting a fish. It will flip its fins. It will balance a ball on its nose. It will do whatever it can only to get that fish. An entertainer, however, is interested in making sure that the audience is having a great time. That's Craig Pomerantz. I'm thrilled that he's here tonight, and he is wowing them. How long have you been at Pangea now, Craig?
Well, it's sort of my home in New York City when I'm in New York. So I did this brand new show. I've done it now. This will be the 5th time, I think.
So
I did it 2 times, and then they said, you should probably do it again. So then I did it again. And then they said, why don't you do it again? And I thought, why not? And you'll understand this, Richard. When I first started in New York, you go to these clubs and you think, who's coming? Who's going to come? And that's, if you have a sustainable thing, that's when people show up because they know you're going to be there. And there was this club in the West Village called the Horn of Plenty. Do you remember?
Oh yeah,
that?
Of course, I played there.
And I used to play there. Like they booked me for every Friday at the early show, and for like 2 months. And like it's subsequent Friday, people ended up knowing I'd be there, so they would just show up. So that it's one way, because you used to tell people how to build an audience and stuff like that. Was one of the things you used to do. So it's one of the things you learn. It's like the struggle. Sometimes you get people, sometimes you don't. This particular time, it's been amazing because, true to what you're talking about, people are so anxious to get out. You know, people have been cooped up enough. Everyone wants to get out, and all the protocols are in place. So it's been great. It's been wonderful.
Well, I want to ask you, I mean, because as I just said with Dr. Bloom, we are all, and first of all, introduce the two of you.
Yes, nice to meet you, Craig.
I'm all about celebrating. So in addition to the fact that you're selling out your shows, which is very great, especially coming out of a pandemic, what else are you celebrating, especially this time of year?
Well, as you said, I mean, you know, I'm a very lucky person. Life is good, and I'm celebrating my health and the health of people around me, and certainly getting the vaccine and pushing that among people in the most gentle way possible.
Yes.
But it's baffling to me that people who don't want to hear it, how to help them understand why it's important to get vaccinated. It really, you sort of like try all these different navigations to make sure that they understand why. And because, as Richard knows, my children's book, which is currently in 11 countries and 8 languages, is about to be published in India and in Greece, and hopefully Israel. So this is the new Indian cover of it. And what's really exciting about it for me is these are some of the other languages. And what's really exciting for me is that, and what I want and hopeful for, is that all these other countries will find an illustrator in their country to put their stamp on it.
Wow.
That's why the new one is really exciting, because it's a totally new illustrator. So I get their vision as well.
So it's called Made by Raffi. And the Raffi I remember was a children's singer, right? He sang these great songs about my mommy comes back. She always comes back.
Right.
When my kids were little, it was their absolute favorite. They would just sit there and watch, get the videos out, and they'd watch it, you know, hours and hours and hours, and just sing these songs. And
this has nothing to do with that, Raffi. No, and I only say that because it's, of course, the first thing that comes up.
Right.
And it's new. It was new to me when the book first came out. Raffi is actually my godson. So it's based on an actual incident with him. And it's, yeah.
How old is your godson now?
Well, now? Now he's, I think, 24, maybe.
Wow.
I know. But he sort of coined a term when we were having this discussion, and he sort of coined the term asking, when he was around, 8 or 9 or something, asking if there was such a thing as a tom girl. And I had never heard that before. And it just resonated with me in a way that I thought, oh, that's a story. So then I wrote the book immediately, actually, right afterwards. And it's kind of a fascinating exploration of what that means to girls and to boys. And interestingly enough, even though this is about gender stereotyping for boys, it also really points to how girls are raised with this idea of being lesser than.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in all these new parenting podcasts I do. That's sort of the new thing we talk about. It's like, why you wonder why girls are lesser than. It's because that's how they're treated. It's like if you're a tomboy, it's like, oh, you're assertive and you're strong and you can stand up for yourself. If you're a tom girl, everyone's like, it's a little, and it's interesting.
I want to point out that this book was written a few years ago.
Yes, it was originally written in 14. It came out in 2014, 15. Yeah.
So this book, I mean, interestingly enough, is more timely now than when you originally wrote the book.
So much more visible now that the language has changed so much, and people have come to it all over. And it's even from the beginning, though, it's been very exciting. And I would get publishers would send me letters and drawings from children who would send me drawings of things they thought Raffi should make, the real Raffi. So, and that's why. And of course, all these places that don't do it, it's an interesting dilemma for me. So that's why it's now that they're coming to terms with, oh, we should publish this. But even in America, I mean, I remember being called by a newspaper editor in Texas, and he said to me, you know, I just bought your book and I wanted to do an article about it, but I'm in Texas. He said, I can't. He said, and I said, well, you're the editor. Can't you do what? He said, yeah, I know my people, you know, and they won't let me do an article about this. But they wanted to interview me and stuff. And I was just like, well, you know your situation.
I read an article yesterday that there's a big backlash going on right now in Texas where they're trying to ban certain books in Texas. And this big backlash is happening because teachers and parents are bonding together. And what just happened in Virginia, you know, with Toni Morrison, who was a neighbor of ours here in Rockland County, where I live. What an unfortunate thing that these books are being taken off of shelves instead of using them as learning tools to have discussions about.
Not to mention how beautifully written they are. It's like they're wonderful books. I mean, when you think of what we hear about, you know, in Japan, there's this huge backlash. I don't know if it's the right word for this, but they are now entering schools with programs to teach boys how to be more masculine, because the whole that whole K-pop scene is so fluid, and they're saying we're losing masculinity. And so they're going to try and install this courses in their schools. It's just kind of a frightening idea that they don't understand how it works. So.
Well, Craig, I hate to break off with you right now, but you're not going to believe this, but our guest has arrived. And she's here. Carole, you made it.
Oh my God, I was just talking to Glenn.
Yes.
That was
Glenn Carole, my designer, who got Carole, and Carole and I are appearing together on Monday night. We're going to get back to your story, but I wanted to make sure that we got her in here before the gods of technology took her away from us. So you made it.
Hi, Carole.
Hi, Judi. Dr.
Craig
Judi.
Pomerantz, Dr. Judi Bloom.
Hi,
Carole.
Craig.
Hi, Carole.
Hi.
So
it's exciting for you guys to get to be on stage with Tommy Tune and
Is Tommy going to be there or not?
Tommy is not going to be there on Monday night, unfortunately, but you know,
in spirit.
He's going to be there in spirit. But I will say this: Carole was in the very first play that Tommy Tune directed.
Oh, you know what I meant to do? I meant to have that magazine article handy so I could show you the picture of us gents. That was in Mademoiselle magazine in like 1978 or something. Do you mind if I'll just walk away from the camera for 1 second?
You can do that. And Craig,
what was the play?
Oh, it was a play called The Club.
Oh my God, I love that show.
Oh, did you see it?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So
and it goes along the theme of what we're talking about, Craig.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What were you talking about?
Well, Craig has written a book called Rafi. Craig, tell us a little bit more about the book.
Well, it's about gender stereotyping, which is what The Club was all about, right?
Absolutely.
And it's about how we perceive things. And that was a beautifully directed show. It was one of my favorites. I think, by the way, I think I was 12 when I saw it. But it was.
Carole was 14 when she was in it.
But it was shocking for that. It's interesting because it would be interesting to see a show like that now to see if it would have the same effect, because it was quite shocking for the time. But now that we hear this language and everything is so much more visible, I'm not so sure how shocking these things would be, but still would be of interest, of course. So
because after we did The Club, and I had a list that I had kept of all the celebrities who came, because we just had everybody came in because we were all starstruck. So Blake Edwards had come to see it. And then the movie Victor Victoria came out. And that's exactly how we were dressed, except that, of course, two of us penciled on mustaches and she didn't. But and then Tootsie, Dustin Hoffman, and he came to see the show. And so after that, everybody probably thought, oh, it's okay now. I'll cross-dress. Not that it's really anything new, though.
So is that where you won an OBIE for playing a man?
We did. We won the cast OBIE. We won. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I knew someone in the cast. I probably knew more than one person that I can't remember.
Wasn't Dana Lorge in that company as well? Am I mistaken? I know that she did one of his earlier plays, one of his earlier productions. Carole, can you talk a little bit about the impact of Tommy Tune at that point? Because he was a performer, entertainer, and he was making a major transition into being a director. And what the air and the feel was with the company and the excitement that was permeating around the company at that time.
Yeah. Oh, we all knew that this was really, really special. And, I like you say, I mean, it was just a beautifully directed show. Tommy was it was brilliant. And we were all just in love with him, and we developed the show. We workshopped it here in the city. We did one performance at Westbeth down in the Village, and then we went up to Westbeth. It went up to the Lenox Arts Center, and we lived in Edith Wharton's Mount. This was before it ever became a museum and was cleaned up. I mean, it was kind of run down at the time. There was very little furniture in it, but there was one big dining room that looked out onto the whole of the Berkshires, and it had a carpet and a grand piano in it, and that's about it. And that's where we would all form a circle, because Tommy was very big on circles. And so in the evening, after rehearsal and before we all went to Betty Bye, we'd form a circle and maybe tell ghost stories or just whatever, and burn candles. We didn't burn the carpet, but and eat munchies and things like that. And so yeah, it was just great. We had there was a laboratory down in the basement, complete with beakers like Frankenstein. I don't know what Edith Wharton did with that. It was there, complete with spider webs and everything. So it was truly an exceptional time, and everybody just really, really bonded. We are all, we've lost two of the company this past year, and not to COVID, just, natural causes, I suppose you'd say. Joanne Beretta and Marlene Dell. Oh, yeah. Joanne was the Gov, and Marlene Dell was the page boy. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of lost touch with Terry White. The last I heard, she's living in Key West. Yeah. So there's Gloria Hodes, myself, Julie Hafner, and Memory and a Rarity that are still right here in the New York area.
Well, Gloria will also be part of the show on Monday night. And
Julie and Memory too.
Yes, I cannot wait. I'm so excited about this event Monday night. I want to ask both of you, and we'll start with you, Carole, because this is creativity in the age of COVID. What was the biggest impact that the past year and a half has had on you as far as your own creativity? And how have you been able to forge through the past year and a half to get to this point?
Well, it's been just absolutely cataclysmic and traumatic for me, because I lost my beloved partner to COVID.
I'm sorry.
In May 14th of 2020. And he was a cameraman for NBC News.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so and I had it myself, but I had a very mild case, and he of course had to go to the hospital and didn't make it out. So it's been extremely challenging for me. But as far as creativity goes, I mean, it took me a while, but I started doing Zoom play readings and did a whole bunch of them. And so that kind of got me through so far. And I've done actually now 2 live readings of 2 one-night events in separate theaters. So that kind of gets your toe back in. But yeah, so it's been quite challenging. And of course, as you see, I'm terribly tech challenged. So
that's what you got here. And again, thank you, Glenn. And Craig, for you yourself.
Yeah, I think some of the usual things that you've heard before. I actually was about to sell a TV show to ABC, and COVID happened. And the people involved also were fired. The senior executives were let go because of Me Too. things. So it was and I sort of, as we all do, like sort of fell into like a little bit of a spiral of like, what am I doing, you know? And then this time just goes by. Now I'm lucky because I have outdoor space and where I live, and I have a wonderful partner, and I'm just sort of like living my life. But and then when I started coming out of things and going, like the first thing I did was go to, I think, Corfu to perform. I forgot how much I missed it. And the excitement and terror of singing when you haven't done it for 2 years is, is a combination of what keeps us going, I guess. But then you see, I think what we all feel when that one person, other than the people who are loving you, when that one person comes up to you and they say, that song was my husband's favorite song, and it meant so much to me that I hadn't thought about it until you sang it. You remember why it is you do what you do. And it's the same thing with the book. It's, people love to talk about it. And what I want with the book is to have those conversations. I mean, I guess that's what Judi would do that's what you do. It's like you want to create conversations. That's how people can learn and develop and grow. And so that's all the good stuff that's now. I will say really quickly, because I don't want to monopolize, but I will say that when things started to open up, when I started to go to Greece, all of a sudden everything exploded. And here in New York City, things are almost sort of the edginess and normalcy of what it is when we first moved here. So it's kind of bizarre and a lot of trepidation. I don't know if you feel that apprehension or not, Richard. But,
well, I live in Rockland County, so and I've only been to New York City. I didn't go to New York, believe it or not, for 1.5 years. So yes, so I missed a lot, and just starting to get my toes back in the water. I was at Birdland on Sunday night, and it felt wonderful to be back and seeing so many friends again. And I felt very comfortable. Birdland, God bless them, the protocols all in place. I've been to Feinstein's a few times, and again, checking, vaccinations and everything to make sure that everything's in place. I know that the event that Carole and I are doing on Monday night, everything will be in place as far as protocols and everything. So I do feel comfortable, in terms of everything going back into place. The unfortunate thing about where New York is right now, and I'm not sure where Carole lives, but is the grittiness of what's happening in the city is getting back almost to a level of what it was when I first came to New York in 1979. I was having a conversation with several people the other day about how unsafe some of the neighborhoods are starting to feel where some of the clubs are. What was going on in front of Birdland the other night, I felt uncomfortable on the street, not inside the club. It feels like I was in a meth lab almost in front of this, because the stench of pot and everything else on the street is just so bad. I mean, are you, Craig and Carole, feeling that in the city?
Well, I've heard people mention that. I'm on the Upper West Side in the mid 70s. And are you?
I'm on 82nd Street, and you never call me, Carole.
Oh my God, I'm 76. But
and I was born when I was born. My folks lived at 79th and West End.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Yeah, between West End and Broadway.
And they never called me either. But go ahead.
I have. Well, of course, I've been, even before the pandemic, I was noticing a lot of empty storefronts, even though the neighborhood is, very, very, high end. But I think I'm noticing a little uptick in homelessness and panhandling, but I personally have not seen the drug use on the streets, although friends of mine who live in Midtown, like at Manhattan Plaza and things, they've said they have, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think that's when I was saying there's an edginess to the city, which I kind of like, but I think that it's interesting that it's a different time in that it's a different kind of fear of edginess, because we didn't have to worry about in the 80s, we didn't have to worry about guns and knives. It's like there were, and now I think that's more prevalent, this idea of like people are getting shot, and like that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And still in the neighborhoods that we're in, if you're on the, the Upper West Side in the 80s and below, it's not, and the homeless thing has got to, hopefully will be figured out. They need places to stay, and social governance is to help them, and it's very frustrating. And the media, as always, has always painted New York as a dangerous city, like making it in some way romantic. I think a lot of people moved here because this is a romantic notion about the city being this, crossing that boundary of not good, the evil city, sin city.
It's funny because I said when I came to New York in 1979, the New York that I imagined was breakfast at Tiffany's, New York on Sunday, barefoot in the park. And when I arrived in New York, it was Taxi Driver and Midnight Cowboy.
Serpico. And Serpico. or better for us on the Upper West Side, Panic at Needle Park.
Yeah. But, like Craig said, there was an excitement. I was 18. I was in New York. And I loved being in New York at the time.
I stay. Yeah, I'm originally from St. Louis. I am a New Yorker. I mean, I just love it here. But I do think that it's. So I think that we'll navigate this well. But I also think there are much more entitled generations. They're the people that they don't want to move into an apartment with 5 people. They no, I should have my own room, my own bathroom. Where's my dishwasher? It's like, I didn't have a dishwasher when I moved here.
Well, I was not always an Upper West Sider. As a matter of fact, I moved in with a friend of a friend, and she had an apartment on 56th between 9th and 10th. And this was in 1972. Now, I didn't know enough about the city then to know that one block can make a huge difference. Absolutely. So 56, that was an okay block. So when it was time for me to move out of her living room, I went down 4 blocks. I moved down to 52nd between 8th and 9th. Well, somebody actually stole the front door of the building. Not once, but twice.
Oh my God.
And I was waitressing at the time. I'd come home late at night. And I remember coming, and I tell this foolish story on myself. I walked into the lobby of the tenement building. It's still there. And it was pitch dark. And I just kept walking. And I was on the 5th floor of a walk up. And I'm going up Sunday. I get to the 2nd and 3rd floor. And I'm like, it's still black. It's still dark. I just went on up and went home. But who could have known who would be lurking around the corner? So after that, I got a little flashlight and some pepper spray.
Right.
And the only thing that saved the block at all was the post office being there, because they'd always be kind of there. But otherwise, it was. And then you'd come down in the morning and they'd all be lying in the lobby, in their urine and whatnot.
In New York at that time, in the 80s and even the 90s, you only walked down Central Park West because all the doormen were there. Mm-hmm. So at least you felt like you were protected by that.
But I moved into New York when I was 19, right out of Cornell, right? I moved into the city. And I went to this party, Carole, this is kind of like what you're saying. I went to this party, and I think it was between 9th and 10th, right? In, just this horrible neighborhood, right? And got into a fight with the guy I went with and left, right? At 4 a.m. and walked out, and it's totally deserted except for all these really unsavory characters lurking around, right? And I was looking around trying to find a taxi to take me home or something, right? And there were none. And this UPS driver comes driving by, I guess on his early morning deliveries, and he sees me standing there, and he pulls over and he goes, "Get in this car," in this truck, right? And I got in the truck, and he said, "Where do you live?" And he starts yelling at me. And he took me home, and he said, I have a daughter. He said, you have no idea how much trouble you could have gotten into.
Oh my God. Was he a true New Yorker?
I love that.
Carole, where are you from originally?
Me?
Yeah.
Texas. I'm from South Texas, a little town called Alice it's 50 miles from the Gulf Coast, near Corpus Christi, 110 miles down to the border. Sorry?
Is it near Edinburgh?
Well, Edinburgh is on the border,
Okay.
but it's about 100 miles north of that. So it's not quite the Rio Grande Valley, but you're getting there.
And did you know Tommy from Texas as well?
I did not, but I know he's from Houston. Yeah.
Wichita Falls.
I thought he was from Houston.
No, Wichita Falls,
okay.
Texas.
All right.
You know, his story is that when he was growing up, he said he did what every father in Texas wants their little boy to grow up to be in the chorus of a Broadway musical.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Carole, I mean, you've done a few live events prior to, of course, Monday night. The first time that you went out and did a live event again after having gone through, what you've gone through in the past year, were there any trepidations for you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was strange. The first thing I think I did, the first live thing was a staged reading. They were both staged readings, one night events. And we were at the Puerto Rican Traveling Company on West 47th. And, they did all the protocols, and we had to have our temperature taken and show our, vaccination proof and wear masks when we weren't on stage. And they didn't have anybody in the first two rows. So, but and we had to rehearse there twice, I think, before we did. So we were in there three times. And yeah, it was a little weird. And, but, and we had a bigger audience than I thought we would have even. And it was nice, once it was all done, so, but I did so many Zoom readings that, I have been telling people, we used to think a triple threat in the theater was somebody that could act and sing and dance. Now I think a triple threat is somebody that can literally walk across the stage while they're saying lines that they memorized. So we'll see if the old, bean is working after a year.
Just standing up there it's interesting because now that things have opened up and you're talking to people, there are some people who still seem somewhat uncomfortable in how to have a conversation, not let alone like, should I kiss you on the cheek? Hello, or should I hug you? But it's just like, I don't remember how we talk. Like, Judi, is that something that you find with people?
Yeah, and I'm a hugger, and I kiss people on the cheek. I'm not, that's who I am, right?
Me too.
And it's interesting because although all of my friends are all vaccinated, I hadn't seen a bunch of them for a number of months because I'm living in Florida now, and in the area that I live in, there are a lot of people who are here for the season, as they say, right? So they've all just started coming back because the season is now starting. And, I ran into two of them and, gave them just reached out instinctively, to give them a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. And while they were both receptive, I viscerally felt the hesitation, right? Because they both live in one lives in Rhode Island, the other one lives in Massachusetts the rest of the time. And, so coming back down here and then, having me embrace them was a little, although they were receptive, I could tell it was a little jarring, if you will, And I think everybody's just getting used to what our new parameters can possibly be, and it's different for everybody. Everybody's has different comfort levels, right?
Totally.
And it's for some people they still, it's still a fist bump or whatever. It's just kind of, and I guess we have to kind of check it out a little bit with people, about what they're okay with and what they're not okay with.
Now, Judi, you mentioned earlier in earlier conversations that when you were in Morocco earlier this year, that because everywhere that everybody had the same protocols and it was much easier to travel around. And I read recently that those protocols are starting to get more lax. And as a result, COVID is starting to get on the rise in Morocco. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I read something about that, like just the other day. I saw something, and I think it's everybody gets to this point of COVID fatigue. Is really what it is, and and then they just sort of start slipping back into old patterns.
Well, I think the messaging has always been the problem.
Yeah,
I sort of I mean, maybe I'm extreme, but I've always been sort of
but, in a Broadway show just this week, 3 to 5 actors tested positive for COVID, and now they're shut down for 3 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, how does that happen when an entire company has allegedly been vaccinated and following all the protocols? I don't understand how that happened.
Well, getting COVID. You mean getting COVID, or the fact that they're positive?
The fact that they're positive within a company when all the protocols are in place and there are certain guidelines that everyone is supposed to be following. And one of the actors, I will say, we drove home the other night from this show. Yes, I see the look on Carole's face right now.
Well, listen, I'm telling you, I've had a little bit of sniffles the last couple of days, which has caused me to have a sore throat because it's draining on my throat. And I'm almost tempted to go get a test before we do the show on Monday. And I would just hate it if I could.
I thought you were going to put on a mask right now.
I know. but to your point, Richard, I think the problem is I feel in some ways that where we are right now is tougher than when we were in complete lockdown in some ways, because we're half in and half out. And nobody really knows when they're being safe or not. And like Dr. Judi said, we've all got fatigue and nobody really wants to have a mask on all the time. And I've eaten in indoor restaurants, but I have some friends who still won't, so it's a real balancing act.
Yeah.
And we're on the precipice of the holidays,
so
that's a big thing.
That's why I'm getting my booster this weekend.
Me too. I'm getting my booster before Monday night.
I'm supposed to get my booster on Saturday. Yes.
Me too.
It's just the messaging is so confusing, and I think that's the sad thing about how politically it's changed. If the messaging had been very black and white from the very beginning, instead of all of these layers of, well, if you're this, you shouldn't, or if you're that, you might not, or if you're this age, you shouldn't. If we were all on the same page, if you know something, let's all do this specifically for a period of time, and then we'll figure out the layers, because none of us knew what it was going to be like.
I've said this before. I also think that it's even deeper than that. I feel that what has happened over the course of several years, and I think this goes further than a political climate that we've been living through, regardless of what side anyone's on, that we live in a culture of entitlement. Absolutely. And so many people are thinking solely of themselves rather than thinking of the bigger picture. And I think that once people get out of that mindset and you're thinking of, what can I do? And I started saying things, now, what can I do for you? And if people start thinking, what can I do for you, instead of what's in it for me, that's going to change things. And that needs to be the bigger picture. And I think that that's where we all need to go in terms of taking care of each other on this planet. And it's not just with COVID. It's with the environment. It's with every aspect of the way that we live our lives moving forward, or we're not going to have anything left. And I remember years ago that I think it was Dan Rather who said that for the first time, and we're going back at least 10 or 15 years ago, for the first time, he felt that we were not leaving this planet in a better place for the next generation, which is very sad.
And very true. I have patients, young women who are struggling with, women who are who are in their early 30s. So they're getting into that age, where they really have to make a decision about having kids or not. And they're really struggling with whether they believe it's fair to bring a child into this world, knowing what we know, about climate change and what is predicted to happen. And,
we have a generation of people in their 20s who grew up with the more visible knowledge of what's happening, and they're actually just terrified. I know 20-year-olds who are just like, what are you people doing, or how did this happen? And but then the problem is then they need to figure out how they can help as well. And they're like, they still are entitled in their way. And they're also isolated. There's a lot of being isolated with Zoom and by yourself, and then you start to become more entitled. Isn't necessarily what it is, but you become so much more involved about your own little bubble, your own little world, and you forget that everything you do moves outward, and touches everybody else. And
that generation is also, again, we go back to entitlement. They don't want to give up their designer clothes or their purses or whatever they're into, whatever the latest fad is, that cryptocurrency, right? Which uses, a tremendous amount of energy and is really, really destructive to the planet, among other things. It's they don't want to give what they want, right? And I think that goes back to what Richard was saying, that people are so self-focused rather than really thinking about the bigger picture and how everything all of us do impacts everybody else on the planet. Absolutely. I have a friend who couldn't get vaccinated because of her own health reasons, is unable to get vaccinated. So she's been essentially housebound for the last 2 years because other people haven't gotten vaccinated.
Right.
So it's just too dangerous for her to go anywhere around anybody. So, it's really is a dilemma.
Craig, you're always performing, or it seems like you're always performing. Have you traveled a lot over the past year and a half?
I only started traveling when I went in September, when I went to Corfu, and then I went to London, and then I went to LA, and then I came back to New York. And it was weird. But it was okay. It was okay because I knew I was back. And before I went to Corfu, even though I wasn't supposed to, and I don't know what this means, but I went to my local pharmacy because I happen to know her, and I said to her, I'm traveling internationally, and I'm nervous about that. Can I please get a booster, even though I'm not supposed to? And she said, come back at 5. So I came back at 5. She had a booster. She gave me a booster. So I felt at least that was something to do. So.
And what is her name?
Did you have a reaction after your
79th and no, I did. I got Moderna, and I only got a little, in my right arm, because I'm left-handed. So I got a right arm, like a little, stiffness, but nothing. It's easy for me. So unlike some people that JJ people got, or Pfizer who got reactions. But,
yeah, I had no reaction to the first 2 Moderna shots, so I'm hoping I won't have a reaction to the booster.
I had a little bit of a low-grade fever after my second Moderna, I think, but it lasted about a half a day.
So you all had the Moderna, am I correct? And I had the Pfizer, and I had no reaction at all to the first 2. So
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Craig.
I was going to say, can we talk about a little more lighthearted? I was like, why do you have mispronunciations? I've always told it was Moderna, but on TV they say Moderna. And I'm like,
you say Moderna, and I say Moderna.
I have this issue that growing up now on TV news has come to say the word often as often. And maybe the 3 of you say often, I apologize. I find that so disturbing.
Often?
I'll be right back. I'm going to get that magazine. It's right over here.
All right.
But while she's doing that, Craig, let's talk for a moment. You are on Friday night. I'm going to pull up, I actually have your ad here. And we're going to show that. You are going to be, there you are. I should have brought that down here. But you are going to be at Pangea, and
Friday at 9:30.
9:30, a later show, and they have dinner there.
You can have dinner there, and the food's perfectly nice. Yeah.
I was there just a week ago or so to see Austin Pendleton and Barbara Bly.
Barbara Bly, of course.
Yeah.
So I expect to see you tomorrow. Okay.
Well, sorry, I already have it in plans tomorrow.
Oh, Carole. You don't call, and now you don't come.
So
the thing is, it's a wonderful little club, and they have a piano in the front, and they do an open mic, and they constantly have music, and it's been like all these clubs, it's been a real struggle, but they seem to have been able to maintain it. So I'm very proud of them. So.
What are the biggest issues that you're facing right now, Craig? I mean, obviously, you're selling out, you've been held over, so perhaps you're not facing any issues as far as audience development, or are you? And if
I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this Friday because I only found out about it on last Friday. They said, "Do you want to do this Friday?" So there's not a lot of time, which is why it's so nice of you to do this, because it's not a lot of time to tell people that we're there this Friday. So we'll see. But for me, I'm just happy to be doing it. As I said before, as apprehensive as I might have been, every show, aside from the fact that we've been lucky enough to have these lovely crowds, it's just that one person every show. If someone comes up and says that song means this to me, or something, and it's just, and also to physically be able to do it. I've never had voice lessons, so I don't really understand the warming up, all that things that people do, and so to get up and then physically do it and be able to do it. It's a wonderful feeling. It really feeds you. It really feeds you.
There was a time in New York, you talked earlier about Horn of Plenty. There was a time where people would go to a club, not even necessarily because of a specific entertainer,
right,
but because let's go to Horn of Plenty tonight.
Right.
And they knew that the quality of whoever would be there was going to be great because the clubs booked the quality of the acts. You and I both know that's not always the norm because of economics and everything that's changed over the years. Do you get a lot of walk-in business at Pangea?
There is some walk-in business, but I think that they still are learning after all this time. They're still learning. What they don't do is what I think they should do that they don't do is in the day when we first started, they would have table tents explaining who was going to be there that week. And they don't do that, and they should, because especially for the later show, when I get there to do my tack, it's like I walk around the room and there are people at the bar and they're like, "Oh, you're performing?" And then some. I would say a good 20% of people that I meet walking in will come and stay and see the show.
Well, ideally,
you didn't know that before that, because no one's there to tell them it's happening.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a platform right now. If you could speak out to the gods that are listening, and what ideally would you like to see in place in terms of all the clubs in New York in terms of marketing and promotion for the artists that are out there, especially now during the coming through COVID and where we are, and what you would like to see for all artists?
I would like everyone to try and take a deep breath and realize that if they're vaccinated, that they can go out and they can follow the protocols, and that they should be supporting live music or entertainment, live performance, because it's not just that it's needed, it's that generates more people and more interest and more visibility for all of us. I wish the club, I also would like to say that people should, and I've said this before, a lot, because what's happened is that the price has gotten higher. I try and keep my cover as low as possible, because the reality is a lot of people, it's like going to the theater now, it's, why are you paying so much money? Do you really want to pay $2,000 to see The Music Man? I don't know. But so it's like, I think that people should realize, if you really want to see somebody for whatever reason, you can call the club, or you can call that person, or write to that person. People have written me and said, "I really want to see your show. I just can't afford it." I'm saying, So I'll wave. If waving part of the cover helps you, waving all the cover. I mean, what can we do to make it? Because I'd much rather someone be there than not be there. And I think that's true of most entertainers. It's like we'd rather people be in the audience than not be there. So you can find a way to make it work. That's what I would say.
And what about you, Carole? I mean, any message that you would want to put out to anyone right now who is cautious or trepidatious about going out to see live theater at this point?
Gosh, I think everybody just has to stay in their own comfort zone. I mean, I don't know what to tell anybody, the two events that they were small theaters, one was the lovely Crane on East 4th Street. Yeah. And the other was they were both off-Broadway houses instead of the big Broadway houses. And I'm told that the big Broadway houses are packed. My friends who have been in there, they said there's no spacing, so I think everybody just has to do what makes them comfortable.
They just surpassed 1 million tickets being sold this week. So, it's happening. People are buying tickets. And now that international travel is open again, and with the holidays, I mean, let's face it, anyone who's out there who's listening from around the country, with all due respect to Florida and Miami, there's nothing like New York at Christmas time.
True. Well, I found the magazine.
Are the Rockettes going to perform this year?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Radio City Music Hall, they've already started. They opened.
Really?
They opened night before last. Friends of mine went, and I go, and as soon as the Wurlitzer organ starts, I start weeping. I'm a big kid. I start crying. Yeah. Carole, did you find it?
I did, but this is kind of sad and funny. I'm like Miss Havisham. This magazine is so old that it broke in two, right where our picture is. So I'm gonna have to show you one at a time. This is, whoops.
Okay, yeah.
There we go. Oh, wow.
Me and Gloria Hodes.
Oh, wow.
And this is Joanne Beretta's ear over on this side.
Oh, God bless her.
There's her ear. There's the Gov's ear. So they put me in the foreground, but this article was like crazy for Gloria Hodes. He said, oh, I think that person fell in love with her. See how dashing she is.
Yeah.
And this is Julie Hafner.
Wow.
Who played Bobo, the young one. So Julie and Gloria and hopefully I will be there Monday night.
Are you bringing the magazine on Monday night?
Should I dare? I mean, it's in tatters.
I think you should bring it Monday night. Yes, you should bring it.
What's interesting to briefly is that as much as that wonderful as that production is or was and should be, I'm wondering if it could be put on today. Like, I'm wondering if there would be all this casting issues about like, well, wait a minute, you're not really a trans person, you're not really a drag person, you're not really a such and such.
I know. And plus the cigar smoking, we did a whole number about a woman is only a woman, my friend, but a good cigar is a smoke. And we smoke. And and I did Full Gallop, Mary Louise Wilson's show about Diana Vreeland too, and we smoked on stage. So. I guess they have those cigarettes now, but anyway, I don't know. It's
well, I want to thank both of you. I also want to thank Glenn who got you here, Carole. And you call him back afterwards and he'll get your computer back to where it was. But anyway, I'm going to give my final comments today. And then Carole, you will have a chance to give your final comments. Then you, Craig. And we will end, as we always do, with Dr. Judi Bloom. Again, I want to thank all of you who took the time to spend an hour with us. I know I can speak for all of our guests today. Anyone who spends time with those of us who are in the theater, we don't take it lightly. So the fact that you spend a little time with us today, thank you. Go, as Carole said, within your comfort zone. If you feel comfortable going to a live show, go. If you don't, those of us who are Zooming or live streaming or anything, take the time to do that as well. Today, I opened up the parameters a little bit, and this also streamed on Facebook, on several different channels as well, so that we could let you all know what we're doing. But it still is very important that you leave a comment on YouTube, because what that will do is that will increase the ranking of this video. Please go to my YouTube channel, Richard Skipper Celebrates. I got rid of the word subscribe because to me, the word subscribe is a faceless entity. And you mean more to me than that. So I say join the celebration. Click on the button that says join the celebration and check out all the other shows that we've done and shows that are coming up. We're going to let you know what the next show is going to be because we're coming up towards the Thanksgiving holidays. Leave a comment. Share this with your friends. Let other people know what we're doing. And again, Dr. Bloom, Judi, and I, we welcome your suggestions. So if you have a show coming up or a project that you're working on and you'd like to come on our show and talk about it, we would love to have you. Join Carole and I on Monday night, provided that you can get a ticket because it is selling out fast. We will be at the Actors Temple celebrating Kevin Winkler's wonderful book. Have you gotten the book, Carole?
I have not yet, but I will.
Oh, God, it is so incredible. Celebrating Tommy Tune. If you're available, go to Pangea on tomorrow night at 9:30. Have a great dinner, great song. See Craig Pomerantz. Please, if you can, be there. I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list and reach out to the fifth name on the list and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. Because as my dear friend David Friedman says, and Craig, you know David as well, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. So I'm going to leave the screen now. Carole, you've got the stage to yourself. Thanks for being here. And everyone take care of yourself. I love you all. Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Richard, for having me and introducing me to Dr. Judi and Craig, two new friends. And I loved the conversation. It was swell.
Well, I will say also, Richard goes to so much effort and energy to make things happen and to broaden the conversation for everybody. And I think we all want to keep conversations going. That's how we grow. So join them and Judi. And I really want to talk to Judi more and hear all about her work and her conversations, because I'm sure they're really interesting. Be safe, be vaccinated, and I wish you well.
And as I mentioned, I'm getting my booster this weekend, and so is Carole, so is Richard. And that brings to mind our need for a boost in our lives. Right now, we need a boost. So challenge yourself. See what you can do that will help you boost your mood, that will help you boost the quality of your life. Maybe that's going to the theater. Maybe that's going to see a show or hear some music. Or maybe it's doing something, maybe it's picking up a book you've been meaning to read. Maybe it's writing that book you've been meaning to write. Just pick something that will boost your sense of self, your sense of who you are and what matters in your life. And do something that will boost somebody else in your life as well. So maybe it's making that phone call like Richard mentioned, or sending, a card to somebody, an actual physical card to somebody, just letting them know how much you care about them and that you're thinking about them. Do something that'll be a boost to you and to those around you. Good night.